Madame Jacqueline, please forgive me. I'm well aware this is a very sinful thing to do.
You're the one who's after my money, Jacqueline. You're nothing but a low-life dispatch worker with a low-ass income. Meanwhile, Deirdre here is a young lady with wealthy parents.
Let's back up a bit here. So the gist is that my husband suddenly told me that he'd left his job without consulting me and told me he was going to marry the woman whom he was having an affair with. She broke down in tears in front of me, and he covered for her with cheesy lines, melodramatic tears, and a disgusting amount of hugs and kisses. She was acting as though she was the heroine of the tragedy, and they were making it seem like I was the cold, heartless antagonist in their corny love story. Well, ask and ye shall receive, because I decided to do what they wanted me to do and agree to the divorce. But that was only because then I could confront them both with the cruel truth. This is a story that I hope will teach you that it isn't money or power that determines the value of any one person, but things like kindness, generosity, and loyalty are the crucial factors that separate good people from terrible. My name is Jacqueline Davidson, and I'm a 30-year-old dispatch employee, which means I hop around town making money by working temporary jobs that range from administrative clerk work to physical labor out in the farms in the suburbs. My husband, Jordan, whom I married 3 years ago, is also 30 years old, and he worked for a textile conglomerate. I met Jordan when we were both working for the same company, as he was assigned to be my educator. He had a cheerful and charming personality, but when it was needed, he could also command a nice display of leadership and decisiveness. This balance between the yin and yang is what got me attracted to him. Fortunately, Jordan also took a liking to me, and we started dating and got married after a wonderful 19 months. After our marriage, we both worked and spent our days off together, getting along famously well. We thought we were having a nice life as a working couple, but then one day my husband told me something that surprised me. This one announcement was what caused our lives to change very drastically. His announcement was that he had quit his job. He hadn't told me about it beforehand, nor did I detect any hints that he was considering the possibility of quitting. Needless to say, I was terribly surprised and not at all happy. Is it already set in stone, this quitting thing?
I've already quit, Jacqueline. I'm going to start my own business.
What? So you're going independent? At that time, I was already working elsewhere because my temporary employment at his workplace had ended after 18 months. So I didn't know what Jordan's situation was at the workplace, and I had no idea why he resigned. I didn't know when he ever got the idea in the first place, and I didn't know the events that eventually led up to his resignation. When you were still working for your company, you were in general affairs, honey. What kind of company are you going to build?
That's what I'm going to decide next.
That's quite reckless, isn't it?
I don't have much time to think about the business if I'm working a usual 9 to 5. And that's why I resigned first, so I could have enough free time to 1, think about what kind of business I want to found, and 2, where to get the funding necessary to get it running.
I couldn't hide the unease that welled up inside. I mean, the gist of it was that my husband had taken action with a virtually non-existent amount of planning. I thought to myself, with this kind of personality, he is not suited to be a business president. So I tried to persuade him not to quit his job. Hey, can't you talk to your old workplace and somehow get yourself another job, even if it's in the form of rehiring?
I can't do something so uncool, honey. I'm determined to make this a reality. I can't work for that tiny little company while I pursue it.
How are you going to make a living in the meantime?
As long as we find investors, we'll be fine. You have no say in this, seeing as you're just a dispatch worker.
In the end, Jordan didn't listen to my attempts at persuasion, and after he quit his job, he got quickly busy trying to raise funds. And he stopped going to work, which meant he was often at home. He gradually became a night owl. He would still be sleeping when I went to work, and he would come home long after dark, after I had gone to bed. Our lives began to diverge, and our marriage gradually cooled off into something unpleasantly distant and unfeeling. I spent my days being worried sick about Jordan's business because he never told me how it was going. Hey, how is the entrepreneurship thing going?
It's getting there. More importantly, though, how much money do you have in savings?
Savings? Of course I don't have that much. You don't contribute anything to our living expenses, and my entire salary is spent on that, honey.
You're useless.
Excuse me? What do you mean by that?
You're merely a dispatch worker, and your income is low. So the applications for loans don't work out the way I want them to.
So you're saying it's my fault?
That's because it is. You can't deny it. If you had a full-time job and a good income, I'd have a better chance of getting a loan. Your family are all farmers. Can't make much money in that domain either now, can you?
Wait, hold on a second. Applications for loans? You mean to tell me you're in debt?
If I need it, I'm willing to take the risk. Because, as a mere dispatch worker, you can't afford the funds I require to get it started.
When I heard these words come out of his mouth, I was shocked at his idea of measuring someone's worth by how much money they have. In any case, he was calling me some nasty things about the fact that I was a dispatch worker. But the reason why I was in that line of occupation was per his request of prioritizing the housework and taking care of him. Naturally, my salary was lower than that of a full-time job, but the fact that he was supportive of the idea was the most important thing we had agreed upon when we got married. Jordan resented the fact that my parents and entire family were farmers, but he was forgetting one crucial detail. He also benefited financially from my relatives. You see, the house we were living in belonged to my uncle, and while he was abroad on extended business, he allowed us to stay there without any rent to pay. Moreover, the house was a large mansion that did not match a young couple early in their years of being married, and I spent a lot of time cleaning and maintaining the interior. I never thought that my husband would say such a thing to me now, especially because this situation had been alleviated by the generosity of my relatives. He's changed, and it wasn't good. He was never like this before, but I had no choice but to believe that one day he would wake up and to hope that that day was nigh. One day, we decided to have a get-together for the members who were investing in his business. He decided to have it at our house. He told me that he had asked some of his acquaintances to help me with the preparations. What? You don't have to, honey. I'm going to be fine on my own.
She's a good cook, Jacqueline. She's very eager to help.
But I don't like having strangers in the kitchen. I'm asking you to tell her that her help won't be needed.
Don't say that. Please don't say that. She's the daughter of a wealthy family, you know. Her parents have agreed to give me a very large investment.
I gave in the end, thinking that if it was going to be related to the gain and success of his business, I had no choice. On the day of the party, the woman he mentioned did indeed come to help, but she arrived when most of the food was already prepared by yours truly. The woman, whose name was Deirdre, was a young lass and looked flashy and glamorous in a materialistic sort of way. She donned necklace and bracelets that were probably worth thousands of dollars individually. She carried a handbag from Louis Vuitton, and all the makeup, manicure, and hairdo were characteristically extravagant.
Hello, I'm Deirdre, and I told Jordan that I would come here to help you out with the preparations.
Ah, yes. Thank you for taking the time to help me.
It's a big house, isn't it? How much did it cost?
I was puzzled by the sudden question. When I couldn't answer, Deirdre seemed to have had an epiphany and said,
Oh, I see. My bad. I suppose you don't know that, do you? Because this is a house built by your husband, isn't it?
I'm sorry. I heard that you're going to help me?
Yes, I am, yes. Tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Well, you could start by making the dressing.
Dressing? For the salad?
Is that actually something you make? What? Well, you can slice up that terrine over there.
Terrine? What the hell is that? Some kind of rodent?
This Deirdre, whom Jordan said was a great cook, turned out to be a woman who couldn't cook at all, even though she herself told him that she wanted to help. For the daughter of a wealthy family, the fact that she didn't even know what some of the hors d'oeuvres were, which are essential for a party like this, let alone make them herself, made me skeptical of her authenticity. Oh, no, that won't do. Oh, I know. You could arrange the flowers for the living room. Would that be all right for you?
Sure thing, Miss Jacqueline.
She came back a few minutes later with the vase in her hands, and I was astonished and downright disgusted to see what she'd arranged. It looked as bad as using an owl as an example of blindness. She had merely shoved them in the vase, with the flowers still wrapped in the plastic. Hey, Deirdre, what are you doing?
What do you mean? I'm decorating the flowers.
Oh, never mind. You can leave them there.
All right.
She walked out of the room in a huff and started to go up the stairs. Hey, wait a minute. Where are you going?
Where does it look like I'm going? I'm giving myself a tour of the house.
Most of the rooms on the second floor are unused. Please refrain from going upstairs.
You even have extra rooms? That's amazing.
I glared up at Deirdre, who stared at the second-floor landing, looking like she wanted to go up and explore. I'm sorry, but you really mustn't.
Oh, all right, I'm coming down.
Actually, the second floor is where my uncle and his wife kept all of their personal belongings. My Uncle Barry is an eccentric hobbyist, and most of the interior decorations and ornaments in his possession are all quite expensive. Some of the rooms even have security systems that set off alarms if anyone other than me enters that particular room. So I strongly warned Deirdre not to go upstairs without my permission, and under the condition that I had to accompany her thusly. Eventually, Jordan returned home with his investor friends, and I pull him aside for a little chat.
Hey, what is the deal with Miss Deirdre? What family is she from exactly?
I have to admit, I've never personally met her parents yet, but she told me stories about how her parents are very wealthy. If I make a good impression on their daughter, news will travel, and the O'Brannons are going to become more enthusiastic to invest in me.
I'll be honest, Miss Deirdre really doesn't seem to be a wealthy lady.
What are you talking about? Everything she wears is expensive brand name stuff.
Well, I mean, if that's what tells you whether someone's wealthy or not, then maybe you're right. And there's something else. She thinks you own the house. You didn't tell her you're renting from my Uncle Barry and Aunt Florence, did you?
That's because, look, we're right in the middle of a fundraiser. I need to give myself some credit. If I lived in a house this big, they would definitely trust me for who I tell them to be.
I was stunned. So you're going around town telling everyone that this house is yours?
Oh, come on, Jacqueline. Don't be a prick. I'll have you know I never actually said those words, you know. I merely talked about the house in such a way that I hinted at the possibility of me being the owner. And all I had to do was give them the final push into making them assume that I am.
Whoever could first of all keep up with that train of thought, and then agree with what the implications were, then I must applaud them. For this was the biggest load of bullshit I'd ever heard. I have so many things to say to him, but his guests were already here and more were coming soon. I didn't have the time to argue with him any longer, so I dropped everything and went to entertain them with a fake smile on my face all the while. After the party started, Deirdre started to act as though she had cooked all the food. I was taken aback by her brazenness, and this was when I genuinely began to think the fact that she claimed herself to be the daughter of wealthy parents was probably a fabrication of her own construction. Call it a woman's intuition, I suppose. Something just wasn't right about Deirdre. I sensed that the atmosphere oozing from her was that of a person trying to put on airs and graces. Since the day of the social gathering, Jordan's behavior had changed yet again. He always came home late at night after meeting people and drinking with them, but now the smell of perfume was mixed in with the putrid odor of alcohol. I began to suspect that Jordan was having an affair, and I wondered how I could confront him about it. But after a few days, to my great surprise, Jordan himself revealed to me that he was having an affair. When I came home that day, I found the house empty, and after having a quick shower, I was having dinner alone in the kitchen. My phone rang, and I found Jordan's number on the screen. He said he had something important to talk to me about, and that he would be home in about 10 minutes. When he came home, he had a certain companion alongside him.
I'm sorry, Jacqueline. I'm so sorry, but I've fallen in love with someone else, and here she is.
He introduced me to the woman he was having an affair with. I can only assume you had a pretty good idea on who this woman could possibly be. It was none other than Deirdre O'Brannon.
I'm sorry, Jacqueline, but she's my destiny. I can feel it in my bones, in my stomach, in my heart, everywhere. I've resigned myself to that fate.
Madam Jacqueline, please forgive me. I'm well aware this is a very sinful thing to do, but I just can't stop loving him.
Deirdre had literally become the heroine protagonist of a corny, tragic romance story. She broke down and got on her knees to beg for my forgiveness.
It's not your fault, my love. It's mine. Please forgive me, Jacqueline.
Hugging his new stupid beloved, Jordan also began to cry and went on to defend her physically and emotionally. Hey now, calm down, both of you. So you mean to tell me, Jordan, that you were having an affair with Deirdre here?
Please don't use that word. This was never an affair. You just met her at the wrong time. If I'd met Deirdre before I met you, none of this would have happened.
So, it's It's my fault? I knew it. All I have to do is step aside now. Jordan, my darling, take good care of your wife for me, okay?
No. No. I will not let you go. I will never let you go. You're the only woman I've ever loved.
Oh, Jordan, my darling, you're the only one I've ever loved too.
Deirdre.
Jordan.
The two of them then hugged each other, kissed each other, and continued with their sobbing. What in the name of Romeo and Juliet horse shit was going on here? I literally felt as though I was the cold, heartless antagonist in their corny love story. I was the villainess. Well, ask and ye shall receive, because I'll play along and say something a villainess would say in a story like that. I know what this woman is up to. She's after my husband's fortune. What a good-for-nothing gold digger you are, Miss Deirdre O'Brien. I said it like a villain would say it, with a wry smirk on my face, staring down at their pathetic faces with a look of contemptuous judgment. Jordan glared at me.
You're the one who's after my money, Jacqueline. You're nothing but a low-life dispatch worker with a low-ass income. Meanwhile, Deirdre here is a young lady with wealthy parents. I'm divorcing you, and I'm going to marry the woman I love.
I said to myself with a loud internal cackle, No, you don't have any fortune, buddy, and you frickin' know you don't. And I knew it was a lie that Deirdre, who had no manners and no education, was the daughter of a wealthy family. I couldn't believe if Deirdre O'Brien was her real name. I began to suspect she'd adopted a fake name to make her authenticity more apparent. She probably had a far less exotic name, something like Jane Doe. By this point, I began to see both of their true intentions in this situation. Jordan was divorcing me, a dispatch worker with an unstable, low income, and was marrying a rich girl. And Deirdre's plan was to pretend to be a rich man's daughter to get close to a wealthy man to marry him and live a life of glamour and riches. I gladly agreed to the divorce. All right then, if you insist that much. Looks like I have no choice. Fine, I'll divorce you, but you'll have to pay me alimony immediately.
That's what I'd expect from a bitch who's after money. Alright, you win. I'll wire the alimony the very minute you demand it. Don't ever get in our way again.
I said that exact same line to Jordan in my mind. I proceeded to demand alimony from the both of them, and they were overjoyed and paid me immediately. I then decided to file for divorce on the same day as I demanded alimony. Now, from this point onward, the star-crossed lovers would find out the truth about each other. I wondered how they would react when that happened, so before I took any action, I decided to wait and see. 2 weeks after Jordan moved out of the house, I received a call from Deirdre.
Madam Jacqueline, how do you do? I must ask you to please move out of that house.
Oh, Madam Deirdre, wife of Jordan, how do you do? I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean.
We are waiting for you to move out as a favor to us, but it seems you're still comfortable, so I believe you've overstayed your welcome. It's high time you left. We want to move in as soon as possible.
Moving here? Is that what Jordan says he wants to do?
No, my darling Jordan is very kind. He feels sorry for you and won't man up to do the right thing and kick you out.
That's very strange. Jordan can't move in here.
Huh? What are you talking about? You're a real pain in the ass, you know that? You must have quite the collection of art in that house, eh? You're not keeping any of that locked up, are you?
You're spot on about the anonymous fact that Uncle Barry does indeed keep pieces of art upstairs.
In case you're wondering, Jordan told me. I'm kind of in a rush. Can you get out of here as soon as possible? You know you shouldn't be in a house that isn't yours.
I finally decided to tell Deirdre the truth, as she was starting to show her true colors. I certainly don't own this house.
So get on with it and move.
But it's not Jordan's either.
Huh?
I went on to tell Deirdre that my Uncle Barry and Aunt Florence had given me control of this house only temporarily. The house was still in their names, and without their permission, they had no authorization of living there. Deirdre was furious when she found out that this mansion was not her darling's.
That son of a bitch! He lied to me! Just look at this mess you've made for us! I'm in debt to pay the alimony, so I'm going to have to demand that back!
Really? Why don't you get your rich parents to pay the alimony for you?
What? That's
You lied about being a daughter to wealthy parents. You can't cook or arrange flowers properly, and your manners are terrible. It's laughable that someone like you could even pull off appearing to be the daughter of wealthy parents. Is your name even Deirdre O'Brien? It sounds way too sophisticated for someone of your status.
You frickin' ugly bitch! How dare you make fun of me? That's it. You pay me back the alimony, or so help me, I'll even give that man back to you.
Sorry, no returns or refunds at this enterprise. Thank you very much. Goodbye. With that, I hung up on Deirdre. Soon after, I got a call from Jordan.
I'm calling off the divorce. Remarry me, I know now. You're all I have.
He told me he was having trouble raising money and was repeatedly getting himself in a large amount of debt. Then Deirdre, the self-proclaimed alleged daughter of a rich family, seduced him and went on to have an affair with him. But she wasn't rich. On the contrary, she was a spendthrift debtor.
I was deceived. She lied to me. My heart's desire is to start over with you. I also want my alimony back.
I can't accept that offer.
Why not? Are you still mad at me? Of course, I made mistakes. That's precisely why I've come to realize that your love is genuine.
My husband's self-deluded confession of love didn't move me one bit. I told him this in response. I realized the truth too.
That's good. I'm so glad you came to your senses.
You know, the truth that I realized is that you are a money-grubbing bastard. I hung up on him without saying another word. I set their numbers to blocked numbers and decided to sever my ties with them both completely. I then decided to move out of the house because it was too difficult for me to live in it alone. When my uncle and aunt found out about my situation, they transferred the management of the house to a local real estate company. After that, Jordan and Deirdre, whose real name turned out to be one Miss Jane Dodley, not too far off from what I predicted, holy crap, went bankrupt because they were so deep in debt. Of course, Jordan's business venture never materialized into anything substantial, and his dream had to remain a dream for another while. How do I know all of this? Because the police who arrested them told me what happened. To my great surprise, they had actually tried to break into the mansion. They thought I was still living there, so they broke in with the intention of threatening and mugging me. But I had long since moved out, and as soon as they entered the property, the security system of the real estate company that managed the property was triggered. The two had masks on, and they were armed with clubs and clutched ropes. And the police are now in hot pursuit for answers. They are going to be living in a building with high, barred walls for the time being. And the only comment I'll give on their situation is good riddance. I was spared from any mishap because I was living in a room in a condo owned by my parents. Truth be told, my parents really are farmers, as that is their main business. But the reason why Uncle Barry and Aunt Florence had a mansion in the first place was because Dad's mother was the daughter of a family of wealthy people who owned quite a few ancestral properties. My parents did not like to show off their wealth because it was an achievement of their ancestors. Nor do I like to boast about my family's notoriety. So I only told my husband that my family were humble farmers. Eventually, I will own and manage the condominium where my parents and I live now. And thanks to my current dispatch job, which was in the domain of real estate management, I've developed a considerable interest in real estate, and perhaps following in my Uncle Barry's footsteps will be in my future. Both Jordan and Jane tried to take advantage of each other's assets by pretending to be wealthy. They thought that paying me alimony for the divorce was simply a pre-investment. They were the worst kind of people, for they transformed the priceless moral values of the tragedy of divorce and the accomplishment of marriage into a finite amount of money. I'm only sorry that I failed to see it in such a man. I'm still aware of my immaturity in how I see individuals, but I'm taking measures to learn as I progress in my real estate studies, so to speak, as I try to live my life with humility. Wish me luck!